Hey everybody, it's Brandon with the Today's Good. Excited to bring you an episode that's going to be a little different than what we typically do. I wouldn't say there's no trauma involved in this situation. Definitely some trauma meeting Jake and knowing Jake, but this isn't about trauma. It's not about growth. It's a spin-off to what we're going to continue to do. We're going to throw some new and some different things that will bring a different audience. And talking with Jake the other day, Jake has worked with me we worked together for, I think, 3-4 years.
Yeah, probably.
But honestly, in all the phone calls and the back and forth about questions and stuff, I think it's been almost 12 years now since I graduated high school is when I met you. And the reason why I wanted to do this with Jake is when it comes to the automotive industry as a mechanic, he's one of the most professional mechanics I've ever met. I've met a lot of good mechanics. I've definitely managed a lot of good mechanics, but when it comes to professionalism with the customer, Jake is top notch. And I've always told him, it just blows my mind. This guy he'll fix a car and he keeps the parts on his bench until the car leaves, just in case the customer wants to see them. He goes to the extent of he will be called up front to the front lobby just to meet his customers on the way out the door to ask if they have questions. And this is a requirement of Jake to a service writer. And for a mechanic to do that, it's almost unheard of. Mechanics a lot of times aren't social people. They are and they aren't. They're social in the back, but they're not social to a customer. They're a rare breed. They definitely don't shut up in the back and play jokes all day long, but when it comes to interacting with customers, that's not their thing, and they avoid it. But Jake is the complete opposite. And this is a spin-off kind of Jake worked in dealerships you were with Zimmerman's
I was with Zimmerman and McGrath for 11 years once they bought Zimmerman out.
and before you were because I met him at Zimmerman's, and then Zimmerman's had the buyout to McGrath, but before that you were with somewhere in Marion,
12th Street Repair in Marion. I was there for 10 years.
and you did not just mechanic work, but you also towed, correct?
No, that was at J.C. Towing.
Okay. So he's kind of been on all spectrums of this business, but Jake is a guy that has helped many people out, has done a lot of side work, and what's cool about him is this whole thing's going to stem to is the comfortability a customer has when they come into a service department. And the reason we brought Riley in, this is Riley Cole, a friend of mine from high school. She happened to be here hanging out tonight and wasn't even intended to be in here, but it all kind of worked out because as we're talking about wanting to do this episode of helping people find the right service department, the things to look at, to be comfortable, to not go in confused if you bought things you shouldn't have, but also finding your person, and that's key. And I've said this whole time through this business is becoming the person's person. When someone has a check engine light, they get to pick their phone up and say, "I get to go see Brandon. I get to call Brandon." There's that level of comfort that is a very stressful situation for a lot of people. They say, a vehicle is the second biggest, most expensive expense you'll have in your lifetime. And honestly, I believe it's the biggest, really, because you go through so many and depreciation.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they depreciate and houses don't. And there is a level of maintaining it. There's a level of when you do or you move on. And Jake is so good at he cares about the person. It's not about selling the work. If it's not ideal for you to fix the vehicle, you're not fixing the vehicle. He's gonna direct you to buying a new vehicle if it's ideal to fix certain things first and putting a plan together. And we've had this talk of I was very key on the service writing side of creating a plan with the customer. And this is where I built a very big clientele is when they came in, they just said, "Hey, last time you told me I need to do this time." And in 2 times I've already got it set up. We've got a plan together, and Jake loves to do that with customers. And a big stigma in the business is going to be maintenance. And Jake, I kind of want you to go into what are the things that you have fought, and when I say maintenance, I'm talking brake flushes and coolant and transmission and things like that. You are such a believer in it, and there's so many non-believers even in the industry. And there's customers, believers and non-believers, but to the extent mechanics don't even believe in this, where do you stand on that?
I stand on, proper maintenance saves money. It lowers your operating costs and saves you on repairs. Years ago, people, 30, 40 years ago, they didn't, do things like Brandon was talking about brake flushes. Well, what they were doing instead was they would have new wheel cylinders or rebuilt wheel cylinders every time they had a brake job. So they were flushing the brake system when they had that happen. But really, brake fluid is what we call a hygroscopic fluid, which means it attracts water. Water obviously is corrosive to various metals that are in a brake system. Some of them are in very expensive parts, such as your ABS hydraulic unit.
And I was gonna say, back in that era,
Yeah.
there wasn't ABS hydraulic
Right.
units.
A wheel cylinder back then was probably $5. An ABS unit, you're talking $1,400 or more.
I've seen them upwards of over 3,000
Yeah.
for an ABS brake unit.
Right. You do not want to have to replace this, which is why we recommend every 3 years or so. BMW actually recommends every 2 years doing a brake flush.
Well,
It's recommended by the factory.
and the thing is, in those units and the things that are coming into this industry, as things develop, passages get tighter.
Yes.
There's definitely less clearances. There's definitely less room for corrosion. There's less room for failure. There's all that. And when you look at the guys that you can think of in the career in the industry that were mechanics by your side that didn't believe in it, who was it typically that didn't?
It was the guys that didn't want to change anything. And I've been accused of this. I don't like change for the sake of change, but if something is better, I'm fine with changing it.
Especially if it's for the customer.
Yeah.
That's what you're
I mean, if it's a better method, it takes care of the customer more. I'd love to see every customer get 300,000-400,000 miles out of their cars. In Iowa, that's not likely just because of the salt, but I want them to be rusted out and have to get a different car rather than, hey, the engine smoked and I have to get a
my
different
brother's
car.
truck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
just diagnosed my older brother's 2016 Silverado with 80,000 miles on. The engine was bad. Like,
Mhm.
nothing he did wrong, but unfortunately, that was not a fun situation for any of us. Like Jake cringed, like it was not. And you've known Alan and had a
Yeah.
connection to that too, but
Well, and that's part of the other thing too. The newer vehicles, like you were saying, the tighter tolerances and things, and the way they're fuel injecting them with gasoline direct injection, that leaves behind carbon. Carbon is very hard. Carbon left unchecked, it's going to abrade things like, cylinder walls, and other things that oil touches.
but they're also using so much alcohol right now. And
Yeah.
it dry seals and things like that too. Like there's the whole system in its whole is, but emissions. I mean, that's
Yes.
one thing, and I think I kind of want you to clear the mud here because me and you had this talk the other day of everybody says they should make it like they used to, and
Yeah.
in Riley you'll get this. Like this will be kind of a kick on. This is gonna be good information for you.
And I-
'cause
and
it's
I'm-
interesting.
I love those older vehicles too. I prefer the older vehicles.
Well, yeah, it's all
If,
dry.
and I love a mix of the old with the new. Take what's good with the new, the fuel injection systems and those things. If you coupled those with the memories you had on the old vehicles, you would fall in love all over again with them, and they would last long. But then again, with the old vehicles, people said, well, 100,000 miles, they were worn out. But did they maintain them the way we maintain them or can maintain them now? They didn't have the synthetic fluids and stuff, for one thing, and they didn't follow a rigorous maintenance.
What's the
schedule.
number one thing right now that's fighting quality?
Oh, yeah, so many,
I
you
mean,
would think that.
what we
the
talk about is
quality went
emissions.
up.
Emissions is the big thing,
Yeah,
and they're being forced to do things.
yes,
The turbos with less displacement and things like that.
yeah,
That
because of CAFE standards.
exactly, and the whole point of this episode is going to be, we're going to direct this towards women. That's why Riley's in here, and it's not just women, but it definitely is a bigger problem for women. Is I want Jake to give us a few things that he thinks he would like you to look at when picking a service department that you should look at and say, okay, I'm comfortable. But then we're going to talk to Riley, and we're going to say, okay, Riley, what are things that she would see and think of when she comes into a service department and it's, look at that difference, like as a customer to a technician, as somebody who doesn't know. What she looks for is the coffee and the chair, maybe, that convenience, the shuttle ride, and you're gonna probably lead it to much more than that, but I wanna kinda find that separation that people, there is the convenience level, but it's not always convenient.
Sure.
So if you can give me a few things that you think people should look for in a service department, look for in their mechanic, to give them reassurance they're in the right place.
Thorough, concise documentation of problems found, repairs that are recommended, a reason why. And then, like Brandon alluded to earlier, I hang on to old parts and I give customers the opportunity to see them. I learned that when I was working at 12th Street Repair and at Western Auto, as a matter of fact. They used to hang on to old parts. Customers had a right to old parts if they so chose, or we could, toss them in the scrap bin.
And anymore, that's not even like a thing mechanics think of. Like,
No,
it's almost like a frantic panic if someone comes in and says, they're going to pay their bill, that, can I see the old parts? They're already in the frickin' scrap bin, and
yeah,
we're throwing Jose, the oil change boy, in head first trying to find
right,
the brake rotors. Like, and I can remember in Zimmerman's,
yeah.
we dealt with this a few times in some brake pad situations.
Whereas if it
Where
was
we
one
were-
of my customers, I said, sure, those are on my bench, let me grab them.
And there was question. I can remember Mike Red and Jake hunting for brake pads to prove points. Like, yeah, and that goes to, and we don't have to go that. I mean, that place is closed anyways,
Right.
and we won't say names, but we've even worked in places that we know that there's corruption, and it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it paints all of us with that brush. All it takes is one customer to know they got screwed. And then everybody there is a dirtbag, everybody there's a thief, and the whole industry's full of thieves, but they can't do anything, so they have to go somewhere. And I tried explaining this to someone who supposedly was a manager. I might have been explaining it a little bit forcefully to him.
Well, you had such
He
a
couldn't-
passion for taking care of people, and that's why you were upset that you thought people were getting
Absolutely.
screwed.
He couldn't understand why it mattered to me if somebody else was shortchanging or cheating the customer. And I said, you call yourself a manager and you don't know why that matters.
So now you have this place. You have Jake, who is so passionate about this and so thorough and good at this in one building, that you're sitting here doing this conversation right now. To you have a technician that's corrupt, and now you have a manager that's not correcting it. Like the variance of those people in there, and that's what you're saying. It paints a picture for all of those people there. And there's also the stigma of people know mechanics get paid for what they do. So they think they get sold things because you get paid on efficiency. Can you give me, like, because people think that's just 100% a negative thing. And it isn't. It is for the business,
Yeah.
but it also holds you accountable to do your job and things like that. How do you find that separation of, it could be done now, but I'm going to put it out to that next one? Because there's plenty of times it could be done now.
Yeah.
And when do you make that call? Do you have a conversation about their expenses? Do you have a conversation about their situation? Is it, how do you find that?
If a customer's come to me and say they want their AC fixed, but they've got limited budget, they said, I've got $300 that I can spend today. Well, they've got a tie rod in and a ball joint that's about ready to fall off. If you do one, you really should do both. They've got equal miles. I'm just saying, do both, have one alignment done, you're good.
Well, you don't pay for the alignment twice.
Yeah. You don't
And
pay
if
for
the
the
one-
alignment
if the one's-
twice.
If the one's bad, the one's closed. So-
Yes, do both sides, just like you do with brakes, do both sides. But if they've got $300 to spend, and,
So you
They
have that
need
direct
that.
conversation
Yeah.
of what they have to spend.
yeah, let's not do your AC, let's fix the part that will kill you or somebody else.
Yep. Okay.
And I'll
so,
show you what's wrong.
So you do it on a financial level of, because as a manager, I used to fight this a lot. I had service writers that wouldn't present a whole multi. You've dealt with this. Wouldn't present a whole multi-point because they're too scared to sell, or they
Yeah.
make decisions on their own of what they think should be sold. It's the same thing as we have these old boys that don't believe in maintenance and won't put it on a multi-point. We also have service writers in the industry that technicians getting that to them, they don't believe in it and they're not presenting it. And what I thought was, and I used to tell everybody, your purpose as a mechanic and your purpose as a service writer is to present 100%. 100%. That is your job. If Riley wants to keep her car at 100%, and that's what her choice is, or she's comfortable with 80. And 80's safe, 80's
Yeah.
operable, but if that's a decision that a customer makes, that's our job to present that. And if there is that roadblock of they can't afford it or they don't want this and whatever, then we address that in the right ways. And I struggled with that with certain people because they're so hard-headed. I thought I struggled with mechanics, getting them to understand that's not your call to make if you think brake flushes are a thing or not. Just because you've been in the industry 35 years and it wasn't a thing, that's not your decision to make. Your decision to make is use the maintenance menu. You put the stuff down on the multi-point. It's presented. Same thing on the front end now. Not your decision to make. It's presented.
Right.
And now that customer has that decision. And I always present, and this is where they say, and now we're going to go to the sales side of things, because there is that side of it, but that's also because we're all paid on efficiency. You're paid on, and I once was paid obviously like you were as a mechanic,
Right.
and I was paid on numbers. There's ethical and non-ethical. When a customer, I present 100%, and they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And if that's what they want 100%, they're going to do it. And like you said, Riley, we talked about before coming into this, what would you do? And backstory, Riley's dad works at Bowman's in Manchester. And how long has he been there? I mean, as long as I can frickin' remember. Never in my life can I remember going in there and not seeing him sit at that desk. So Riley has this comfortability in her life where if something goes wrong with her car, she's not scared. Dad is there to take care of her. And the conversation we had, and I'm like, you know what, let's throw her in on this, is what if she didn't have that? I asked you a question, and a name of a business is going to come out of this, and that's not the point, and we talked about this, Jake, before, is it's not the business, but where would you go, Riley, if you didn't have your dad?
So I bought my car from McGrath's here in Cedar Rapids, and just because of that familiarity, that would be the
That'd be
first
where you
place
go.
that I would take.
So you're going to
Because
base
they're
it
the
off
trained techs for that line.
Well, and they sold her the car. That's kind of what her thing was. They sold me the car, so I'm going to have them take care of it. Like, and she also doesn't, and she didn't put together the line. Like, if she bought it from McGrath Dodge, the familiarity, she's familiar with that. She drives a Chevy. It wasn't even that. That's where I bought my car, and it's.
Okay.
And I asked her, now when she were to go in there and they present things, what would she do? And what'd you say?
Sounds good.
She's just gonna do what they tell her.
know. Yeah.
And she also said, what? You would tell them sounds good, but.
I mean, I wouldn't know if it's stuff I need to do today.
And
6
then
months
you
from
and then
now.
you question that, and you have that because you wouldn't have that comfortability, and that comfortability. And this is nothing with McGrath, nothing with anywhere else. I, as a McGrath employee and a service writer for years, and you as a McGrath employee, the things that were put in front of her were correct. Is it with everybody? We can't. I mean, we have no control. Just like the guy we were dealing with. Where is that line for Riley now? If she didn't have that, and that would be a very uncomfortable situation for you, your whole life,
Right.
since you drove a car, you've had that. Like if something happens, you call Dad. If you're to the point that Riley's car came in to me at Caliber Collision, actually, she got hit.
Not by choice.
Not my choice. She got hit and ran, and it wasn't much after I started. And she didn't even realize I worked at Caliber. And she said, "Hey, if you need collision work, where would you take your car?" I said, "Well, take it to me at Caliber." And she goes, "Well, my car's being towed to Caliber." It wasn't even towed there because I was there. It's just she had State Farm,
Sure.
and they directed her that way.
Yep.
Her dad knows me very well, and her dad knows I would do anything for Riley. He even came in to see what was going on that next day because we fully tore it down, and everything. Insurance was paying the bill. He wanted to come in and have that comfort, but that's you and your dad's thing, like,
Right.
and he's gonna do that for you and make you comfortable with what's happening, even though it's me. You don't know. It's a business, and there's even that. Like, we've been very good friends, childhood friends for a long time, but you've had this comfort of your dad for so many years that even with me, you don't know.
Right.
And that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, but not in a bad way. It's that's how much people question this. Like
Yeah.
they,
Oh yeah.
because they don't know.
Right.
And what did you tell me you wish you would have done tonight?
I wish I would have taken basic autos class in high school because you never know. I mean, there was a time when I was in college that I blew a tire on. I went to Wartburg in Waverly and blew a tire on 218 and had to call my dad. And I mean, he's over an hour away, so not much he can do. But waited
And
to
even
be
if the
towed
tire,
somewhere.
even if the tire wasn't a thing, do you think it would help you if you had some sort of idea of how things worked? So when things were being presented to you, like if Jake right now talked those things he was talking about when we were talking about emissions and talking, so far over your head, just at least have a base idea of how things work. But the problem with that is that's such a developing thing. Us in the industry can't stay on top of that. I mean, you're going to see something tomorrow you've never seen.
Well,
And-
I work on a lot of European stuff.
Better
But-
than German.
Oh, it was, yeah, I'm talking German.
Well, you're working on BMWs.
Those and Audis and
You
Mercedes.
need
and
a new job.
I've done some Range
I hope you
Rovers and
find a new
things.
job.
No, I'm fine.
I'm just
trying-
kidding.
I'm
It's just such a weird thing for you too, though.
Yeah, I hate, I'll work on them, man, they are a pain.
And we do hate it. We'll just say we hate it. We do because it's so much different than what we're used to.
Right.
I mean, they got hate working on our stuff, even though it's simpler. Like
It's, the American stuff, I mean, so
the
much simpler.
simplicity is
And,
the
and
first
honestly, so much more durable.
it is.
I mean,
the BMWs. We were talking about Corey
yeah.
Smith a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
The times I was young, I started there at 19, and I don't know shit from shit. And I'd walk up to that bay of his and see a BMW torn apart, just the valve cover off.
Mm-hmm.
I'd run away. I'm going home. It's so
You
intimidating.
know, the
It's
4.4 BMW direct injection, you know what those valve covers pay?
probably 12 hours or something.
18, I think.
Yeah, for a
'Cause you gotta
valve cover.
pull, you gotta pull the injectors and
So
stuff.
what is that? That's a V8.
Yeah.
So it's obviously not in there sideways at a V6 like that the intake's got to come off.
Right.
Holy, that just blew my mind. But these things are developing so much and they're so much different that even we can't stay on top of it.
Sure.
So how does somebody like Riley learn enough to be comfortable? Because tomorrow it's not enough. Was it
And
you
like-
telling me like the lady that did the ASE? The lady who didn't study and she went and did the ASE thing? Or was that not you?
I don't think that was me.
There was a lady that took her car to a shop, and there was always the sign hanging outside the shop that said ASE certified.
Ask someone else.
And she, exactly. And she always wondered what that meant. So ASE certified rally is, I mean, that's,
It's multiple choice questions.
yeah.
Basically,
But it says you're a master and you know what you're doing on the aftermarket world, more or less. Like, did Hyundai require you to have ASE?
Hyundai did not. Neither
Neither
did
did Ford.
Neither did Mitsubishi. That Mitsubishi encouraged it. If your yearly bonus, they would pay you double if you were master certified.
So what we mean by that is, I went to Ford school and got my Ford Masters, and DMAC, Jake was platinum Hyundai certified, and that's really cool. Like people will never grasp that. I mean, I remember when you did that. That was a big deal.
That was grueling. Yeah.
It was cool, and I think how many were you in the state of Iowa that had platinum?
Not very many, because I think there was 6 people in the Platinum Challenge course when I took it, and 2 of us passed.
Yeah.
And these were
And
all
this
guys
is-
that had been through all the training that
and
Hyundai had,
They had a Masters, and this
Yeah.
is their like
and they couldn't.
next.
They just couldn't pass the.
This is like your
challenge.
doctorate. But-
Wow.
And basically, the Platinum Challenge was basically like an airplane mechanic has to prove that they can do the work in front of an instructor. The Platinum Challenge was the same thing. We had to not fix the cars that had the bugs, but we had to be on a path towards a diagnosis and repair of the problem. So we just had to prove we knew what we were doing, and I think what clinched it for me, they had an Azera that had an AC concern, and they said, treat it like a normal day at the shop. They said, if there's a tool that you would normally use, or a piece of equipment you would normally use at the shop, that's not there at the station, ask for it. I'm like, okay, AC is not working. I use the scan tool, yeah, it's reading low, fine, we knew that. So I asked the instructor, I said, where's the AC machine? Instructor kinda looks at me quizzically, calls another instructor over, says, hey, Jake here wants to use the AC machine on the Azera for the AC concern. The two instructors look at each other and he's like, well, AC machine's not working right now, but if you were to evacuate that system, you would find 100 grams in it. And it's supposed to hold 625.
Okay.
Didn't have enough refrigerant.
And that's
So,
all. And that's all it was.
It took me 5 minutes. You had 55 minutes for the challenge. 5 minutes. I had my diagnosis. I said the thing's got a leak somewhere. It doesn't have enough.
But
AC.
they were gonna make you chase your tail. That was the intention of it a little bit. Was to
It was trying to get people off their game.
yes.
But
Yeah,
when-
exactly. Chase your
when
tail a
they
little bit.
pounded
Get off your
into
game.
us and said, "Hey, do exactly what you would do in the shop, in the real world.
Kiss.
Yeah, keep it simple. It's the basic stuff."
We're gonna go back to Jason Geyer.
Yeah.
Geyer is part of that Heat Treated podcast I was talking about. On the toolbox in my high school auto shop, there was a fucking sign that said "Kiss."
Yeah.
And he'd always tell us, "Simple, stupid." And like he would
Jim
shorten
Godwin.
it, but keep it simple, stupid. And
Yeah.
like I've used this for years. Like when
Yeah.
I took Dave right over, like my young guys that were struggling, I print that and hang it on their toolbox.
Sure.
Like, keep it simple. Don't overthink the situation. And I really like how they did it for the platinum certification was to, but that's the level of. There's so much variance in mechanics. Like it's just these guys would chase their tails and they get thrown off. And
We are often our own, and you know this as well as I do. We are often our own worst enemies when it comes to
Mhm.
diagnosing a problem.
Mhm.
It's like you overlook what it is because you're chasing something that you think it should be, but it isn't.
Exactly. I couldn't tell you how many times people make that
How many
determination.
weird codes do you see that are related to a low battery? I mean,
I'm Justin. And this girl, friend of mine, she keeps coming up in all these episodes. Called me last week. She got a 2022 Jeep, the truck, whatever it is.
now the Gladiator.
Yes, and
I was
she
gonna say
said
Centurion, but that's not right.
she Snapchats me and she's got her phone towards the dash and she's trying to start it. And shit's going haywire. And she's freaking out. Like this thing's a piece of shit. The radio's flashing, the gauges are going nuts, there's lights on the dash. And she's just in panic. Like, just bought this $40,000 vehicle, and I'm like, the fuck battery's dead.
Yeah.
And she responds like, she's gonna call somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, I just gave her the dumbest answer in the world. Like, how in the hell? And because everything relies, there's so many computers now.
Yeah.
And the computers rely on voltage, and once they don't have that voltage, they get confused.
They
Just
will
like
go
you do
stupid.
when you get on the wrong path and you don't have the resources you need, you'll go stupid too. Like, but it's such an industry. And I told her, I said, I guarantee. She's like, well, the check engine light's on. Well, no shit, there's a low voltage code.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, why would the battery light not come on? You know how long it's been since a battery light has been a thing in the bit, like, and people don't even grasp that. Like, battery lights. I don't know, Riley, if you probably have ever driven a car that would have it. You got a Malibu, right? That
Way back
Malibu,
when.
that maroon one. Was it maroon? What color was it?
Silver.
Silver. What a maroon one. Domeyer.
Mm.
Domeyer had the same one as maroon. That probably, you're good, Jake. That probably had a battery light, maybe like an 0102 Malibu.
Yeah, it would have.
So you have actually driven a car with one that surprises me. But as a mechanic, and I told her, she goes, freaking out about this battery light. I said, I cannot remember, as a dealership mechanic, certified with Ford, a car I ever worked on, the battery light was on. There wasn't one. I never, because I was too far past that era, it was the things in warranty that are coming to the dealer were past that era. I had working on the redneck shit back in Manchester and dealt with like those things, but it's not a thing. And that's, these people everyone's so clueless because things are changing. But
Sure.
there's a reason for that low voltage code.
Yeah.
There's a reason for a technician. They've done that for a reason, and they've developed, and it goes back to the quality of things they're putting out now. The things they're doing is all off of development.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we talked about is they're developing. They don't go backwards.
They've got it pretty, I mean, as far as the way they're monitoring systems and stuff, they've got it pretty developed at this point. They're tweaking it still. Well, I think they're doing
Well,
a
and
lot
they
of
have
tweaking.
to. They have to.
I think they
though.
do a lot of tweaking out there.
Well,
You
well, look at Volkswagen. Of course they do.
know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
But they have to because of the standards being put in front of them.
yes.
The
And-
EPA.
and which are oftentimes almost impossible to meet.
And it goes back to a person like Riley's never going to be able to follow that.
Right.
It's Riley's got to find a person.
Mm-hmm.
And you are that person, Jake. Like, you are that person for people.
Right.
And what I would like people to take from this is find your person. I have a buddy that lives down the street that I lived with until I moved in here. I've always told him, becoming the person's person has been my number one thing I've told people in this industry. When you become that person's person, it grows itself. The things sell themselves. The trust is there. I tell them they need these things, they do them but it's not off of a just I don't know. And there's not that uncomfortableness on the backside.
Right.
I encourage finding that person, but I definitely think there's things that people need to look at that to know it's the right person. And this industry is developed off creating that mindset to the point that's how I was training my staff. Even
What do you do when you look for a doctor? I mean,
yeah, honestly, like what do you do?
And I'm not saying that we are
No, you are.
doctors,
No,
but
no,
we're
no,
kind of
no,
like doctors.
no, it's not
No,
just
I would
hard.
say definitely like I'm a huge word of mouth person.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
So I would start there
You
and
can't
see
buy
if they
that.
knew of anybody.
Yeah, you can't buy
You
one.
can't buy that advertising.
Right.
So-
And then
Do
other
you
than
look
that,
at
you go
Google?
to the internet.
Yeah, Google is a big thing people go
Sure.
to, and so Jake works for in town, and we're gonna advertise this a little bit because Jake is the mechanic there. You run the shop.
I'm the service department.
He is the
I'm
service department, and Jake
department.
is the service department. It's just him. He runs the front, he runs the back, he does all of it. Habs. If you have a place in Cedar Rapids you want to go, Habs is it. Because I'm telling you, this is your man. This is that comfortability. This is your person. Are we saying that that's the only answer to the world is Habs and that's why we're doing this? No. But we know that what's there. And it's finding that, it's using the resources of people you may know in the industry, it's finding that comfortability on however people find it and not making it off of it. I don't know, because Riley's that type of person.
Sure.
You know those type of people. We present something to them and they just do it because it's common sense to them, right? And then there's those people that won't do it because they don't know. It goes both ways. She does it because she doesn't know and it's common sense to just do what they tell her. And that can be fed to in the wrong way in this industry. You get in the wrong place as a person like you, you're screwed. They're going to get you every time you come in the door. Every time you come in the door, that service writer, and even me as a service writer and a professional in this, it's easy to fall into that. Because you're paid on numbers. It is.
I had a
This girl's easy to sell to, so, but you know what I'm presenting to her?
Right.
100%. It's just that I know that girl's going to buy 100%.
I mean,
I'm never going to over things that people don't. And
right.
it's just like you, a multi-point you fill out's never going to have it, and the multi-point to me is never going to be presented in the wrong. It's finding that to know that. And
Yeah.
But to find the guy that's going to give you that, this is 100% how to keep the car perfect. But we're going to build a plan if that's not your intentions. And it isn't feasible financially. It isn't feasible due to your dad being in the industry. It isn't feasible to you grew up on a farm and that's not how things were. Like, and there's so many variables to that.
Sure.
And it's feeding that. It's feeding that. It's reading people, getting that, and you being able to just say, what's your budget? That's what I used to do.
I mean,
Present this shit,
and that's
they
one
give me
thing.
a dollar amount, and I'm at $1,100 for everything. And they say, I can't do that. Okay, what can you afford today?
Mhm.
Service writers are terrified to ask that question.
Sure.
Why?
Because they don't want people to walk away without a sale at all.
But that's not the point of the question. It is if you have the intentions of taking everything you can take. And people used to look at me when I'd say that, like, he's got balls. You just ask that lady, like, what she can afford. Well, that's me building rapport and becoming her person of, we're going to put a plan together based off of what she can afford. I'm going to make comfortability. I'm going to give her her next oil change. Let's throw this in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do that off of your financial stats. That can go different ways. And I'm telling you, that's how I sold it. And I was very successful as a service writer. And people would seriously look at me like, that guy's swinging his nuts. Like, I'm doing the opposite. I'm backdooring, I'm building a clientele. And all of a sudden at McGrath, people realize everybody goes to Brandon. Like, it was just the way it was addressed. It was the way I did it. But I also had the number one numbers in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Because I built that comfortability. And I never felt bad about what I did. Because I didn't push them into things they couldn't afford.
Because they chose what they wanted to do.
Even if they couldn't afford it. where they push a little bit at times of this is what's best for you because I don't want you walking in the sales department.
Oh, yeah.
Because it makes more sense to do it this way. And up there, there's also that you're gonna overpay for the car. You're gonna have go through the business office and pay for extended warranties and things like that. Put us in the back. I'll flat out say it doesn't. No place is intended. We have more morals.
Oh, yeah. So it's, the car sales is wired completely different.
I wouldn't even say morals because those people may have morals. It's the problem is the way they're paid and the way that they are forced to be.
Absolutely. They gotta get
As a
every
whole
sale.
service has more morals than sales.
And especially these last 3 years. I mean, I feel bad for, especially at new car stores and stuff. I mean, they haven't had inventory to sell. They're probably sweating bullets at night, wondering, how am I gonna make the mortgage? How am I gonna, pay for this car that I just bought for myself?
So about a month ago, I stopped in to Peddler's Fork after work. And there's always this, Jeff Nistel's one of them, but there's always this group of 3 guys that I worked with at McGrath. Jeff Nistel just happens to be from our hometown. I grew up across the street from him. But Ben is a salesman for New Car Chevy. JD is a new car salesman for Buick. And Jeff is a new car sales manager for Buick. Ben comes up to me because this whole frickin' union battle right now, the shutdown, and that's happening, and he is in panic because he wants to know how bad. Like they don't know how bad's this strike gonna. Because
Has
everyone's
already been
scared.
40 days.
Yeah, and this was at the very beginning, like
Sure.
probably in the first week, and he goes, "Are you guys?" And this is when I was still at Caliber. He's like, "Are you guys worried about this affecting you?" Well, no, because people wreck cars, they have to have them fixed. Like, insurance is either gonna fix them, but now parts become a problem.
Yeah, unless you go aftermarket, if there are aftermarket.
If there are, but you know what's really weird that I was seeing, I would do. Our system was set up to where I write an estimate.
Mhm.
It automatically told me what the OEM price was.
Mhm.
It knew off the parts number.
Yep.
And I knew by standards of that insurance company, they're going to require me to get aftermarket. They're going to require
Okay.
me to get used, but OEM's the last resort. It's 2 years or newer has to be OEM most of the time. Anything other than that, one might say sheet metal they allow aftermarket, and the other one say we allow sheet metal, but not textured pieces. Like they may be completely backwards between insurance companies. But I would do a quote and I would submit to LKQ. Is where a lot of my aftermarket and used. It all went through either LKQ or what's the other one that they're tied with now? It's LKQ and I can't remember. So one's intended for aftermarket, and one's intended for recycle. Okay. I would get that girl would message me back off my parts list what she has and the cost, even though I already know when I send it up. It tells me automatically the headlight's $285, it's recycled, it's A quality. She'd come back and say, that headlight is $785, it's A quality. It'd be more than the OEM price.
Mhm.
I knew damn well. I picked that phone up and I called Chevyland and said, can you give me this headlight? No, it's on back order.
Yeah.
These aftermarket companies are paying these people to sit at a desk and literally they are doing that research to know what's back ordering so they can inflate the number on the back.
Right.
So there's so many moving pieces that a person like Riley will never follow that. The answer is find your Jake, find the guy, find your dad. But and the reason we threw her in here is because it's cool that she has that. And it's very rare to have that for people to have it, especially a single woman. And especially a single woman who has kids and it's the transportation of their children to get place to place. And we've seen that all over that they're in panic. What do they do? What don't they do? Because that's so important to them and they're alone and they don't have any resources, whatever.
Yeah, it's not like they have a backup car.
And it's not just women,
Right.
but it's definitely more of a women thing. And that's why I pushed it that way. But I'm going to encourage find your person, don't find your place. Find the little things. Find the comfort. Find the guy that's willing to show you the parts. Find the guy that's willing to come up front and introduce himself as the mechanic. Make that comfort happen. And if it's not there and it's just like a relationship, if you don't feel it, leave.
Yeah.
Like if it's not there and you don't have the butterflies of, I know I'm being taken care of, there's a million places to go. They're all over. I mean, to the point that you can't even start a shop anymore because there's just so many. It's flooded.
There is a certain amount of market saturation, but they should, a shop that you're going to should be able to explain why they need to do something, or you need to do something, or they want to do something. They should be able to, that's one of the most important questions is why.
Why? Why? Stories. Stories.
Yeah.
Off the code, I found this. I found the resistance.
Yeah.
This. It's not just a winging it. PO420s are number one. How many places just wing a PO420 and it ends up screwing someone in? To that point, if certain aftermarket shops get a PO420, you need to go to the dealer because they don't want to make that call.
Right.
A PO420 is a converter. It's,
They don't look
but
at,
there's so many reasons you can get
but
that
it can
code.
be
It can
a
be a
minor
bad
air
converter,
leak.
but it can be an air leak on the engine, and they're putting
or
a
farther down the exhaust system,
$1,500 converter in because supposedly it's a converter death code. Well, the computer's reading data at the converter wrong because the air leak's causing the data to be wrong. But places won't make that call because it costs me a bit.
And that's a good point, especially in the warranty dealer world, and I saw it. I couldn't bring myself to just shoot from the hip and make a snap judgment on something.
That's not who you are. When you talk about
I
this-
just couldn't, because whether it was Hyundai paying the bill, although they didn't pay very well, or, and
Awful.
that's the other thing too. When a tech is working for warranty pay, and this industry chews up young techs, especially at dealerships, they get out of trade school and they're 12,000, 14,000 in debt, and they get thrown on the lube rack, or maybe they throw them to the wolves and put them on a vehicle line on flat rate.
or brake switches on a Hyundai recall.
Yeah.
That's a prime example. 'Cause
Now,
I
if
remember
they're
starting
hourly-
there, no idea what I was doing. Remember how many brake switches we were
Oh
doing?
yeah,
I did brake switches
Hey,
all day,
man.
every day.
those are 3/10 a piece, baby.
Yeah.
You do 100 of them in a day. I mean, you're talking real
You
dollars.
gotta have 100, and someone up front's gotta deal with 100 customers through the
Yeah.
door in a day. That's what you fucking fuckers don't get. Is I went to the other
Hey.
side and realized they want 100 and I wanted 100. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
You get a handle up on the front side. There's a level of handling,
Well,
and there's
and then-
that fucking frustration too.
And then the other side of that is, and I mean, it's a business. It's a for-profit business. This
Everything is.
shouldn't be a mystery. Somehow it is. Oh, they're trying to get my money. Well, yeah, we're a business. We're not a charity. We're not, I mean, whatever else. But management, they had unrealistic expectations a lot of times where, hey, this 3/10 recall, this customer that bought the vehicle from us hasn't been here in 8 years. Do a full multi-point on it, make an estimate on everything that's needed or
Which
recommended.
takes you what? For Jake, you are die-hard. the
15,
most
20
thorough
minutes at
to
the
do the
minimum.
inspection.
At the minimum.
Not to go to parts and get.
Yeah.
Now throw that in and get to get full.
Yeah.
This taking you 45 minutes
Yeah,
on a
That-
310 recall.
45 minutes that the tech, myself, did not get paid for.
Free.
Yeah,
And now you
for
have a
free.
310 recall that takes you a half hour, and
And,
you're another 210 back.
but then another layer to the onion cake, then you get a nice note in your pay stub for the week that says, hey, you didn't meet the minimum requirement of 100% productivity, which is 40 hours, that we require here, but you're at, I mean, you're 36 hours, but all you had was warranty work. Yeah, there was a 5-page letter that went back to them and said, okay,
You can go fuck
when
yourself.
all well, I didn't say that, but
You
I said, all I'm doing is warranty work. For some reason, nothing's getting sold. I said, if you audit every RO I did and every multi-point and every estimate I wrote in them, ask yourself who's not doing their job.
Yeah, you're doing it.
So-
And there's no question when it comes to it.
And not only did the service manager read that, and the general manager, it got brought to the managers meeting, and the dealer principal got to read that note too, and put it down and said, I don't disagree with anything he said.
And it does. Jake, you were with Hyundai, which is the
Yeah.
fucking worst for pay. They
Hyundai,
are
Kia.
awful.
Yeah, they're,
For warranty, awful.
yeah.
It's not just you. I've heard this from. I hired a kid when I ran Alice Full Service.
Oh, yeah.
That left McGrath Kia. Not left McGrath. He left McGrath Kia because he was doing those engines through that
Mhm.
recall. And he came in, he's like, it pays fucking 8 hours.
Used to.
It's taken him 16. He's a young kid
Yeah.
who is developing, but no one else is going to do them. There's such this.
They
The
chopped.
older guys are getting angry and saying, I'm not doing those, they don't pay well enough. They're getting thrown at these young
They
guys.
chopped 25% off those engines.
Why?
They used to pay 8 cents because somebody bragged about it on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
Don't, you young techs out there, don't ever post to any social media that you can beat warranty time or even regular time on anything. If anything, you post that it took you double the time because
Well, and it's not
they
that
like
too,
to see
because
that.
you don't lie either
Yeah.
when it comes to the customer side.
No.
Manufacturers fucking lie
Yeah.
because they're out to screw everybody and make
But even like aftermarket manuals and stuff or labor guides, they will monitor social media and they will actually, I understand, chop labor times on the non-warranty side too.
And what's the saying they always say? You're not paying me for.
You're paying me for my experience.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're-
you can't buy experience.
So if you're beating time, it's coming from experience. It's coming
It's-
from
it's-
the know-how, and you've gone through the know-how.
Yeah, it's experience. I mean,
So you
I'm
get to-
29 years in the business. It's that $500 tool I bought just so I could do these stupid recalls.
It's just like going to the best back surgeon in Iowa, going to Rochester,
Yeah.
compared to going to St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting that experience and that professional, that quality,
Yeah.
and you're paying for it. And
Yeah.
people don't question that because they go to Rochester knowing it's going to be the best, and they don't question, well, it's going to be more money.
Right.
And why do they in the industry? It is a thing. So we're gonna wrap this up. I really am gonna push. If you have questions on this is such a gray area, and it's gonna be even Riley's gonna walk out here going, "What the hell did I just listen to?" And reach out to Jake or I. Like we have this passion. I'll get you to Jake if you need a mechanic in this area. We'll get you in if you're not in this area. Give you some key things to look for. And in me, I've made plenty of phone calls for people to a service department saying, "Why are you doing that?"
Yeah.
If they call me and say they're telling me I need this, like, and that's the thing is if we're close enough to you, it does get and it gets overwhelming.
Mhm.
People do make phone calls because we are an overused. Shit, I feel guilty calling you, but it's like me and you have that level of it's a little different.
Yeah.
But you get enough of those phone calls, even when I call, it's like another one. Like, and you're not ever gonna not do it for me, just like I wouldn't you on anything.
Right.
But it's just another one. Like it's, and so, if it's about finding the right place, we have that passion enough, we'll lead you there. Jake isn't gonna take your phone call on how to fix your car and what does this mean, and you can't do that to Jake because that's not fair to Jake. On this, it's using his experience. You don't get that privilege with a doctor. You
Yeah.
can't just
I
call
don't
and
have
say,
cash app.
yeah, that's
I mean, I am in this for money. My
Yeah.
wife prefers that I get paid.
yeah,
So,
that's
It's kind of funny that way. But
he's not. He doesn't have Cash App. He's got OnlyFans. So we'll address that
I-
later, and we'll give
I
that to
actually
you.
do OnlyFans.
Anyways,
Feet pics, $10 a pair. Yeah.
if you
Peanut
don't,
butter, no peanut butter, you call it.
Jesus Christ. And this is what I mean. It doesn't come to the front end. It stays on the back end. And now I said back end, and Jake's head went somewhere else. So we have Riley in here. We have Jake. We have me. We're good resources. Now Riley can reach out to us, and like this is a thing that, but use it. Don't go into that situation uncomfortable. And if you're in this area and you're in the corridor, get a hold of Habs, because I can tell you there's one man there, and that one man's your man. If it goes to two people, we'll address that later. But right now, that's the only guy you're getting, and there is no doubt in my mind that's what you're going to get, and that's why he's here. So I am going to advertise a little bit for them and for Jake, because Jake does things the right way, and he deserves it, and that's just it. So if you have questions, reach out. Thanks for joining us on this. We're excited to continue episodes like this. We've got some more coming. We've got one coming on self-employment compared to being employed by somebody and the positives and negatives, and if you're a person that desires to be self-employed, the benefits and the negatives that you find once you do that. So there's another one coming that way with John Begun. He's an owner of a tile business here in town, good friend of mine. There's going to be things coming like this. And also, in the next day, probably tomorrow, we'll be posting Officer Brad's episode that is awesome, and you guys will love every minute of it. it's gonna stem to so much because there's so much more to come on that. So watch out for that episode. It's coming soon. Thanks. If you guys want to say bye, thank
Bye.
you.